sacred places. Places where we remember those who paid the heaviest price for our freedom. You are at a sacred place.
Martin Luther King Jr. was killed tonight in Memphis, Tennessee.
We gather here this morning at one of the darkest hours of all mankind.
Throughout history, African Americans like Martin Luther King have fought and died for freedom, for equality. From the call for human rights to the stirring of the struggle for civil rights. The National Civil Rights Museum is dedicated to telling the story of that struggle. History lives here.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal.
Enslaved Africans in America knew that the words of the newly forged Declaration of Independence did not apply to them, to us.
That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights.
We knew at that time we were not considered equal in the eyes of white Americans, nor the new American government.
The vision of America as the land of opportunity did not include equal opportunities for us.
But that was someone else's vision, and that was a vision that could not prevail.
No matter how long it might take, no matter what it might cost, we refuse to be defined as less than equal. Since the dawn of America, immigrants flocked to our shores, seeking freedom and opportunity. We arrived against our will, bought and sold as chattel, our families torn apart.
We were denied the most basic human rights and dignities as our labor became the bedrock of the American economy.
Though we shed our blood for American independence during the Revolutionary War, we remained enslaved.
The new Constitution counted us as just 3/5 of a person.
We put our lives on the line to escape a life in bondage.
We cry out to you for liberty. Our masters have no more right to make us serve them than we have to make our masters serve us.
Gentlemen, is this to be right and just? Is this a free country?
Some of us organized our efforts, and the national anti-slavery movement began to gain traction.
Our call for freedom rippled across America like a rock tossed into a stagnant pond, and the white Southerner was afraid.
And many in the North tried to silence our message because they too had an economic stake in the survival of slavery.
One of us, a daring slave named Dred Scott, sued for his freedom. He based his case on the fact that he and his master had lived in free areas where slavery was illegal. The case sparked a debate on black citizenship that reached our nation's highest court.
In a crushing blow to our cause, the court ruled that we were not truly Americans and had no right to sue. But we had forced the public to hear our cries for freedom. We could no longer be ignored.
As our borders expanded, political tensions continued to escalate. Hostilities between the North and the South came to a head with the 1860 election of President Abraham Lincoln, who opposed the spread of slavery. Threatened by Lincoln's victory, Southern Democrats were more determined than ever to preserve slavery, even if it tore the nation apart.
Rumors of secession quickly turned to reality. One by one, Southern states broke away and formed the Confederacy.
A Confederate attack on Fort Sumter was the spark that plunged our nation into civil war.
North and South, black and white, the war ravaged all of our lives.
In an effort to cripple the Confederacy, Congress passed legislation allowing Union troops to confiscate Confederate property, including slaves. Thousands of us, classified as contraband, sought refuge with the Union Army.
As the bloody war intensified, Lincoln issued a game-changing proclamation,
calling for something most white Americans never imagined: our emancipation.
The Emancipation Proclamation wasn't a moral defense of our rights. It was a strategic military decision to deprive the South of its most critical resource, slave labor. 500,000 of us seized the chance for freedom and fled to Union lines. Our camps became communities where we worked, went to school, and put down roots.
We answered the call of a key provision of the Emancipation Proclamation and took up arms by the tens of thousands.
While we had much to celebrate, it wasn't easy. We left loved ones behind and faced violent retaliation.
It wasn't until the 13th Amendment was signed that slavery was abolished in all states. It was a seismic change to our legal status. But the battle to gain full equality would go on.
The Union defeated the Confederacy. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery, and the government set out to reunite and reconstruct our country. We took advantage of the newly established Freedmen's Bureau and began to rebuild our lives.
The light has come. The rebels is put down and slavery is dead. God bless the Union forevermore.
The federal government supported our efforts, deploying troops to protect us from those who wanted to hold us back.
We gained full citizenship and equal rights with the 14th Amendment.
And finally, the right to vote became ours with the passage of the 15th Amendment. Our time had come. Our voices would be heard.
We cast our votes and sent 600 black legislators to the state houses, while 16 of us gained seats in Congress. But our newfound rights were too soon in jeopardy.
To silence us, individuals and terrorist groups like the Ku Klux Klan waged a campaign of violence and intimidation.
We saw our hard-won gains crushed by widespread racism and the government's waning commitment to Reconstruction. The federal government withdrew its troops from the South in 1877 with the Hayes-Tilden Compromise, bringing Reconstruction to an end, and with it, the protection of our rights.
Nothing did more to curtail our rights than the laws that became known as Jim Crow. We endured the daily humiliation of state and local laws that targeted us in every aspect of our lives.
Some of us took up the fight for integration in public transportation. When Homer Plessy refused to sit in a colored-only railroad car in Louisiana, he was arrested. He sued, arguing the segregation law violated the 14th Amendment.
His case made it to the Supreme Court. The court ruled against him, and the doctrine of separate but equal became the law of the land. It was the final blow that set segregation as the status quo for the next half-century.
We were denied our right to vote through laws specifically aimed to disenfranchise us. Poll taxes, literacy tests, and grandfather clauses blocked our path to the polls, and so did terrorism.
As we continued to battle Jim Crow laws, racial discrimination turned increasingly violent. Race riots erupted across the country as white mobs attacked us in cities from Atlanta to New York.
Violence and murder stirred us to action.
Let us agitate. Agitate until the protest shall wake the nation from its indifference.
We must join the fray for our recognition or be stigmatized forever as a race of cowards.
Let the cry for organization go forth until the country is girdled with organizations for colored men.
Once again, we organized to fight for our civil rights and our lives.
We sowed the seeds of a movement, one that would use strength in numbers to attain equality.
We didn't know it then, but we would fight that battle for the next half century.
Let us rise up with a greater readiness. Let us stand with a greater determination. Let us move on to make America what it ought to be.
Once again, I would like to take this time out to thank each and every